guys, today we are going to be talking about the best type of residential fridge for off-grid. Alright, so here it is, guys. If you've watched me long enough, you know that I have lived many different types of alternative lifestyles when it comes to being off the grid. A lot of my life I have lived without electricity and even without refrigeration. My van life adventure that I had, basically last year and the year before, wasn't my first time doing van life, and it certainly wasn't my first time in my life living without an actual refrigerator. And if you guys watch some of my videos, you know that I did buy a refrigerator for the van, but it basically took all of my electricity and ruined a battery and did all kinds of stuff. I actually went through 3 refrigerators trying to find a good one, and I can tell you that in my experience, unless you keep an eye on them and babysit them, a 12-volt refrigerator really isn't a very good idea. Now, if you have an extremely large solar system for your vehicle and lithium batteries and things like that, you might not have to worry about it. But with my little tiny system, it wasn't going to cut it. And living these kinds of experiences most of my life, I mean, when I was growing up, we had propane refrigerators a lot of times because we didn't have electricity at all. We didn't even have solar back then because, well, solar was pretty much new to the market and almost non-existent to most people who could afford it. So, I've lived a lot of my life trying to figure out how to keep food fresh, how to preserve food and things like that. So that's why I can do all these videos about canning and all these different things because, well, the big elephant in the room, freaking refrigerator, poses a problem when you don't have very much electricity. Now, I don't know if you guys have been keeping up on the news or, anybody that lives in California knows that PG&E comes and turns the power off at any time, at any moment, especially if the wind is blowing too hard. They turn the power off because, well, their power lines caught an entire town on fire a few years ago and burned it to the ground. I'm sure you guys heard about Paradise, California. It's no more. So PG&E and the powers that be decided that if they felt like the electric grid was going to be a fire danger, that they would just shut it off at any time. And then, of course, you have weather-related power outages and maintenance-related power outages. So a lot of times we don't have electricity in a lot of parts of California, especially in rural parts of California where we live, or like where we live. To top all of that off, Ron and I decided that we are going to at least try to set our house up so that when that happens, we'll be okay. We won't have full electricity, but we will be okay. So I'm setting up a smaller solar array, hopefully here pretty soon when we get all the components. I have an inverter and solar panels, but we still need quite a few more parts and the battery bank to make it happen. But that being said, you still have a lot of things to consider, and one of the elephants in the room is a refrigerator. It takes up so much electricity that it's ridiculous. Even a little teeny tiny one like the one I had in my van could potentially kill your battery bank in no time. If you are on a grid tie system, you don't have to worry about it so much unless you really just want to make your electric bill go down. And that's another reason why I'm doing this video too, because maybe some people just want their electricity bill not to be as bad. Maybe you're looking for a new refrigerator because yours is old and clunky and it just doesn't work anymore and you're wondering what to buy. I'm not here to talk about brand names because right now especially the supply chain is so messed up that you're going to basically go to the store like we did and find whatever refrigerator you can find, first of all. And secondly, I don't know enough about, all the different brands of refrigerators to give you guys a recommendation. I mean, somebody that's been buying fridges for a long time or tries out equipment or whatever is going to be the person that does that. I'm not here to give you guys a review on any particular brand of refrigerator. I just want to show you guys the type of refrigerator that is more suited for off-grid applications. Alrighty, folks. First of all, this is our old fridge. This is a nice fridge. It's one of these great big old monster things that you can use to feed 10 people, maybe more. And it was in the house when Ron moved in, and it was still sort of functioning before we took it out a couple days ago. And as you can see, it's very luxurious. It has lots of room. Very nice. They still make refrigerators like this, even though this thing's probably more than 20 years old. And you've got the awesome drawer on the bottom. This is wonderful for storing all kinds of food, except for one thing. It uses a lot of electricity. And even when these kind of refrigerators are new, they're going to use a lot. Now, when you buy a refrigerator or look at one at the store, there's going to be a little energy guide sticker that they put in here, or piece of paper, bright yellow, and it's going to tell you how many kilowatt hours it uses a year and how efficient it supposedly is and all that wonderful stuff. But if you're like most people, you don't really know what that means. And especially if you're on the grid, you really don't have to worry about what that means. All that means is it's probably better than your refrigerator that you just threw out. Okay? And now you can afford to get a bigger refrigerator because, you know, it's more efficient. Correct? Well, yeah. The only problem with that is when you're dealing with solar off the grid, you have to make sure that you know what's going on from the day to day. So what you want to do is you want to look at this little sticker right here, this inside of your refrigerator, and it tells you how many amps the thing runs, okay? And this is how I figured out that this thing was just not going to work. All right, so it's 7.10 amps when it was made, when it was doing its thing, when it was efficient, before the compressor wore out. So basically, you're going to take that and you're going to multiply it by 120. So 120 times 7.10 is 8.2 watts. So you're going to need quite a bit of battery power for that. All right, that's probably an overestimation, but I like to do things on the overkill. So you're going to need 600 to 800 watts of solar just to be able to run this refrigerator and recharge your batteries every day. That's huge, okay? So if you're doing something like a schoolie build or something like that, you're going to need a smaller refrigerator. You're going to need something different. If you're doing something off-grid, or even if you're doing just like what Ron and I are doing and taking the refrigerator and the freezer offline, you're going to need to do something different. So let me show you. Okay, as you can see, this is our new fridge, like I said before. Notice that the freezer is on top. Okay, we're going to get to that later, but yes, just make a note, a mental note, the freezer is on top. Okay, then you have the refrigerator on the bottom. Plus, it's a little bit smaller. It's not as many cubic feet. As you can see, we have it full of food. And it's not a problem. All of this food was in the other refrigerator, and there was still space left over. Because, well, it's just the two of us. We don't eat that much. So we have, you know, quite a bit of room even in this one. I've got some spaces down there where I could shove stuff. But that aside, back to what I was trying to show you guys. Okay, here's my little sticker. That's on the inside of this fridge. Excuse me. There goes my door. All right. You've got 1.2 amps. All right. So here it is. You multiply 1.2 times 120. That equals 144 watts. That's all this refrigerator takes to run. That's not including surge, but when it's on, it's 144 watts. Okay, that's quite a huge difference between this refrigerator and that big one that's over 800 watts. Now, anybody that has an elementary school education is going to realize that that is a huge difference in power needs. All right, so the reason why I'm showing you guys all about watts is so that you can understand, like I did, what kind of inverter that you need to buy, like how big it needs to be. Also, bigger watts takes more electricity. It's a no-brainer. So if you're just trying to save on your electric bill, that's an easy way to know. If not, while you're looking at the refrigerators, if you're shopping for a new one, just check out the kilowatt hours, compare the two. If it's just like with the watts, if it's a bigger number, it's going to take more electricity. Ron and I are just trying to make it so that we're okay. We don't want to be taking the house completely off the grid. Like I've said several times on this channel, this house is not set up for that, at least not currently. But some of the biggest electric bill that we have are the refrigerators. Also, it is a worry because, like I've said before, anytime nature has a hiccup, anytime the wind blows too hard or whatever, our power goes out. So we don't want to lose our food, or we don't want to have to worry about that kind of stuff when we're on a trip as well, because we do travel a lot. So a lot of times he's always checking to make sure our power's still on at the house, because we're worried that the refrigerators are going to be off and then we'll get home to a bunch of rotten food. And that happened last summer when we were gone. They turned their electricity off for quite some time, and we had to come home and throw about $200 worth of food away. So for us, it's just a good thing to take at least the refrigerators and a few lights and things like that off grid. That being said, you know, there's a reason why these top freezer refrigerators are more efficient. And it's something that's common sense, and it's something that I didn't even really think about until I looked it up, because I thought it was my imagination. I'm looking at all these different, you know, energy numbers and stats on all these different refrigerators, because we were going to get a bottom freezer because Ron's tall and he doesn't like bending down to get stuff out of the refrigerator, and you get in the refrigerator part more than you get in the freezer. So we were still just going to go with that and just maybe find a smaller one. But then I realized, no, these things, not only are they more expensive to get a bottom freezer, but they use way more electricity for the same size. Because we were going to get one about the size this one is, because we don't need a big monster refrigerator. We don't have any children living here or anything. So it just was taking up too much space anyway. So we were going to get something smaller. And then, first of all of those refrigerators are quite large. And secondly, they just use more electricity because the compressor is on the bottom part. And now you've got this freezer that's where the heat from the motor is coming from, that's supposed to be at zero temperature, you know, 0 degrees Fahrenheit or whatever, and or lower, and you've got this heat from the motor coming into it, and of course then that's going to make the compressor come on more often, and it has to work harder to keep this thing cold because it's right next to it, which is the heat source. It's not such an issue with the refrigerator part because you're not trying to keep it frozen. You're just trying to keep it a little bit cold. So it makes sense that if the refrigerator is on the bottom and the freezer is on top, that the unit's going to be more efficient. And I always wondered why, when I was looking at refrigerators that were specifically made to go on solar, like Sundancer or, you know, Sunfrost refrigerators, for example, why they never had, you know, freezer on the bottom models. I couldn't find them anywhere. I looked and looked and looked and couldn't find any. And that's why, because they don't want to put the compressor next to the freezer because the freezer has to stay coldest. Most of their models are either freezer on top or they look like a deep freeze, and they're like a chest refrigerator. And that's another option you guys can do too. You can get those if you can afford them. But for most of us, all we can really afford and even get a hold of right now because of supply chain things, you know, yeah, it's just a regular refrigerator. And they, like I say, they cost a lot less. So yeah, if you're going to be doing any kind of off-grid thing, whether you're building out a school bus or a little cabin, or if you're doing just like me and Ron and just taking part of your house off the grid, consider getting one of these refrigerators with the freezer on top if you want an upright one. If you want a chest refrigerator, which is way more efficient because the cold air stays in and it doesn't escape, because cold air likes to stay low, so when you open it, it just stays cool in there. That's why supermarkets can have open air freezers and it works fine and the food stays frozen because the cold air stays down. So it's more efficient, even with the door off, like at the store. So if you really want something really efficient, that's what you should do. Or convert an old, convert a freezer into a refrigerator. And that's a whole nother can of worms that I'm not even going to get into. But yeah, so yeah, just an FYI, guys. I wanted to give you guys all a heads up on this. It's just stuff that I found out, and it's stuff that I had to do from trial and error experience and just research and digging. And so I don't know. I just wanted to save you guys some steps and some time. If you're like me and you just want to set up a small system for whatever reason, and you've got room and or a place for a regular size refrigerator, make sure you get one of them with the freezer on top. And that's another thing too. The bigger the refrigerator, the more electricity it's going to take. So yeah, just keep that in mind as well. If you can get by with a dorm size fridge or an apartment size fridge, even better. If you don't want a chest refrigerator. And those 12-volt ones, they work good too. Just know that they don't do what they say on the package most of the time. The control modules don't really work very well on a lot of them, especially the affordable ones. And so they don't shut off when your battery bank gets too low. So you're going to have to put in other fail safes, or you're just going to have to make sure that you turn it off at nighttime so that your batteries don't go dead while you're sleeping. So anyway, I just wanted to give you guys a little information, and I hope that helps you out. And if it did, please like and subscribe and all that good YouTube stuff. And all right, have a good one. We'll see you on the next one. All right, bye.